Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Sorry. I'm laughing having watched everyone dancing, or at least some of you dancing. Jenna's in this black void somewhere dancing the Galactic Driftwood theme, and Chris is over there jamming out, and Seth's just kind of sitting there mellowing. Yeah, it was awesome. So anyway, hello and welcome to this special edition, After Dark edition of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Linda.
I'm Charles.
I'm Seth.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Chris.
And I'm Stu.
And
Always a pleasure to have you, Stu.
Always a pleasure to have Stu on board. And tonight, we're going to talk about some fun stuff. First of all, we wanted to definitely talk about the recent Star Trek Strange New Worlds and Star Trek Lower Decks crossover episode, which was quite comedic. A lot of good fan service there, I thought, and really a good story. Very entertaining. So let's see. Unfortunately, Chris hasn't seen that because Chris is.
Sorry, I'm behind this last couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah, but Seth has seen it. Linda's seen it, and I think we're the only three, right? So, Seth, why don't you give a recap of the episode?
So I have to preface this by saying that I did skip ahead in both shows to watch this. So some of the things might be jokes that I haven't gotten yet. But we start off in the animated universe of Lower Decks with the Lower Decks cast getting assigned to duty on a planet that had a portal on it that was just some sort of routine chore to go and scan once, and then you do it again in a few years. So it's supposed to be a normal, boring thing like they do. And of course, they do something goofy, and Boimler gets sucked through the portal and spits him out right into Captain Pike's Strange New Worlds.
Right.
And
right into their away team, because they're also Pike and Number One and Spock have beamed down to the planet because they have just discovered the portal for the first time. In the Lower Decks era, it's been around for a long time, inert. They just go scan it, right? So go ahead, Seth.
And so, of course, when he comes out through the portal, he no longer is animated. So this is the actual actor who plays Boimler, who I was really surprised to discover a while ago was also Huey on in The Boys.
Yeah. Seems totally different, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
He looks more like his dad there. His dad is Dennis Quaid.
So they literally did like an animated
that's
jump to live action.
Yeah. Yeah, it started out animated. He goes through the portal, and when he comes out the other side, it's real action, live action. And the interesting thing is he lands there, and shortly thereafter, when they go to the opening credits of Strange New Worlds, the opening credits was completely redone as an animated opening credits.
Yeah, it looked really good too.
Yeah, it was. So go ahead, Seth.
But yeah, so Boimler is now stuck in the past, and he is like 90% the cartoon character that he was in Lower Decks. So he is bumbling around, screwing up every conversation he gets into. He, of course, has a huge, just like hero worship out his ears for every single member of the Strange New Worlds cast, and it quickly discovers that meeting your heroes is sometimes a little bit not what you'd hope for, as he quickly embarrasses himself in front of Captain Pike, is mysteriously terrified of number one, and oh god,
Because she would break him.
it's actually I'm not going to spoil the reason because it's a good joke later on.
Yeah, it is pretty hilarious, and of course he's all almost misty-eyed over Spock. Spock's his huge hero, right?
Yeah, but then sees Spock smile. Or no, he tells a joke and Spock laughs.
Yeah. And he's like, what? I've broken Spock. Something I did broke Spock.
Which just in turn makes things worse and kicks off a temporal thing that he's got to fix with the Orions. I'm just like I'm skimming over a lot of stuff to not spoil things.
There was a pretty hilarious scene where they realize they need to somehow manually jumpstart this portal in order to send Boimler back to the past, because he's constantly screwing up and saying things he shouldn't about the future. And they're like, just don't say anything, just don't talk, because you're going to destroy the future, right? And of course he still screws up. And so Pike's like, yeah, we got to get him back. Well, so they need this special substance to do it. And it isn't used anymore in the Strange New Worlds era. It was used, was incorporated into the ship in Enterprise. The original Enterprise with Scott Bakula, who played Jonathan Archer, Captain Archer, in their ship. And so the Star Trek Starfleet tradition is that when you have a new ship that's named after an older ship, part of that older ship gets incorporated into the build of the new ship. And so as a consequence, they have a part that has this special substance in it that they need to jumpstart this portal. But they need to test it first because it's kind of volatile substance and they got to get the quantities right and all this stuff. So Boimler has to work with Spock to do this. And so they're in a lab testing this out. And so Boimler's just kind of doing whatever Spock does, putting on the goggles and all this stuff and getting ready for it. And so Spock's like, all right, throw the switch. And he throws the switch and the thing kind of goes pop, like this. And Spock just starts walking away to position himself behind a bulkhead. And Boimler's like, that shouldn't have happened, should it? As Spock's walking behind the bulkhead, and he goes, no, hide. And Boimler's like, ah! And he runs and does the thing. It just explodes and blows the room up.
And it's 100% like could have been a scene out of Lower Decks, too.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Well, but you'd actually skipped forward a bit.
Yeah.
Because they had taken Boimler back to the artifact or the portal to send him back, and they had determined that the artifact had enough for one charge, one trip, one more trip, and so they've got him there. He's saying his goodbyes, and just as he turns to walk through the portal, he gets hit by oh goddamn, I forgot her name.
What's her name?
I'm saying I've forgotten.
What's her name? Edwards.
I can't help you because I didn't see it, so it's not my way. Good luck.
Now I can't think of it either, Seth. You've hosed up my memory.
Well, we're at it. This isn't the musical episode either, is it?
It's Beckett Mariner, Tony Newsom. Beckett Mariner.
Mariner.
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you come
Mariner as
flying through the portal.
Yeah, as Tawny Newsom comes through the actress comes through. And once again, she's a good ringer for the animated character.
Right.
But I think they probably were just planning on doing this from the beginning.
Right.
So do you think it would have worked if they went a slightly more bizarre route with this and did something like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit or Cool World, where you blend in the animated and real world? Do you think they could have pulled that off to get a little bit more crazy with it? Because it's already, it sounds like this is actually done pretty well with the portal that flips someone and then they go from their animated world into this other type of world. But I am curious of, I'm trying to envision like a crossover where you would have something like Cool World or Who Framed Roger Rabbit or even Space Jam.
Well,
Chris,
the fans would have lost their shit.
yes.
Right.
I don't think it would have worked. However well done it could have been, even if it was as well done as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I think it would have been too far.
Yeah.
We're already
I agree.
multiverse.
I think it could work as part of like a drug trip or something.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had
Lower Decks.
Yeah, I mean, we've had Star Trek episodes where people end up in this weird alternate dimension where nothing seems like, it's supposed to be. So that's why I was, you can always find an excuse in the Star Trek universe of explaining it away one way or another, where it's either a dream or something like that. But
they're the same universe. So
I'll be honest. Yeah. That was my fear going into it. Is that's what it would be, and I really was not looking forward to it at all because I thought this is just gonna make the whole thing seem.
Welcome to the dumpster fire.
Yeah, right. I was not looking forward to it. I thought the way they did it, that was the way to do it because that, for me at least, made sense. So
they released photos well in advance of this episode coming out of Mariner and Boimler.
Yeah,
I mean, when I seen that, like that's what people had to look forward to.
When I first heard they were doing it before any of the promotional photos came out, that's what I was expecting, and I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna try to combine live action and animation into a single show. I mean, it's just to me it would make Star Trek too ridiculous.
We may have to do that. You mentioned it, Chris. A After Dark episode on Cool World.
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
Brad Pitt has never looked younger.
Brad Pitt's first major film, or it was close after Thelma and Louise.
One of his breakout ones. Yep.
Huh.
Kim Basinger, hot as both a human and a cartoon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my parents did not let me watch that one.
I'm looking here. Has the musical episode happened yet?
No, that might be the next one.
Okay.
I don't know. I know there's supposed to be a Gorn episode, and I'm thinking that that's going to be the finale, because it may be a kind of a cliffhanger thing, possibly.
So musicals are okay. Blending animated and live action, not okay.
Right.
No, I'm not a fan of the musicals. No.
I'm looking forward to the musical.
I struggle with musicals as well.
One question, I haven't seen this episode. So what is the substance?
What do you mean?
The substance they had to use to trigger the portal.
Oh.
Bloblabium.
What is it?
The Bloblabium. What the random what?
It doesn't matter. It's just some random.
The last time I was on this podcast, we were talking about a very specific substance for a while there. It would be a great Star Trek meets Cocaine Bear. That's a hell of a crossover, right there.
It would be. It was like, turns out the substance was cocaine, and that's how we got it.
Now, In an infinite universe, you'd think they would eventually encounter a planet whose power source for everything was cocaine.
Just partying.
You know, I am a little bit interested. They don't really delve into what future drug use looks like in Star Trek, do they? Not to get too off into a tangent.
Because they're all drug tested.
Well, they did in Picard.
Next Generation.
They did in Picard.
Yeah.
There have got to be very important episodes of all the different Star Treks. Like in TNG, I think it was the game.
Yeah.
That thing that they'd wear.
Yeah. Holy
Right.
crap! I remember that.
Yeah.
Just
that
that
one.
There's a very simple game of these shapes going around on the screen.
Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah.
I forget the name of the episode. But it was the episode where one planet was essentially addicted to a substance provided by the other planet. They thought it was necessary to treat an illness that was going to kill them. And in fact, it wasn't. They were just going through physical withdrawal. And so the provider planet had grown rich and prosperous, and the addict planet was pretty much what you'd expect from an addict planet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. I think they could have pulled it off, Bill, if they introduced drugs into the mix, but it would have been a very different episode. Now, on the flip side, I have issues like you have with like mixing real and live action with the musical aspect of it. I like if it's a musical, it's a musical, but just to put it in just because you can, I don't know. I struggle with it.
Well,
Right.
I think one episode's going to be black and white too.
Yeah. Right. Riker played a credible trombone back in the day.
I can only think of two series who pulled off the musical. One was Buffy the Vampire Slayer because magic was involved, and two was Lucifer because God was basically losing his mind.
Yes.
People were like, he just enjoyed songs, so unconsciously people would start breaking out in song around him.
As long as we don't have
watch more of that show.
jumping a shark, I think it's okay. Never mind.
Let him have fun. I like it. I like the random music.
You know what? I agree with that, Seth. And so I think if you're gonna have fun, you can't really have limits on it. You just have to tastefully find a transition into whatever that fun is. So it sounds like in this case with the crossover, they did really well with the portal.
Yeah,
going
they did.
from one end to another. So
well, and to be fair, I would not have expected that episode where they're all running around in royal costumes and and one of them's Captain Pike's like who's the king? I think the Doctor was the king of the world.
I just started this episode. I haven't watched or finished it yet.
Okay, well, I won't give anything away, but yeah, I would have expected that, to be kind of ridiculous too. But within the episode, it sounds perfectly explainable as to what happened, right?
I think I messaged you about I think I sent a message to the group saying, "Hey, they're doing a holodeck episode before they had holodecks."
Yeah,
right. That's what it was. Like they did that all the time on TNG. Like
right.
They'd have just like a whole episode where they get stuck in a holodeck.
Right.
Yeah.
Reenacting.
It's one of my favorite episodes is Nog gets PSD and goes to Vegas. That's one of my favorite Star Trek episodes of all times. That's just tremendous.
Yeah. Which one was that?
No, Nog for the Ferengi ensign gets PTSD from almost losing his leg, and so he goes to Vegas for a month.
Yeah, they crash landed at wasn't the Roswell?
Mm-hmm.
That was the Roswell episode, right?
I love the reference to those old scientists.
It's only a paper moon is the name of that episode.
Thank you very much. Yep,
got it. I remember that.
Jenna?
Well, I was saying, speaking of Roswell and aliens, Stu had a great topic for us to discuss.
Yes.
Was it the Star Trek universe coming into ours, or do we got little green men, or do we have humans from the future? Let's get off on this rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah. So so Congress had a hearing this week where they brought in 3 guys. They were Ryan Graves, who's executive director of Americans for Safe Aerospace, retired Air Force Major David Grush, and retired Navy Commander David Fravor. And
Fravor.
Fravor.
Mm-hmm. I've listened to a few podcasts where he was on Lex. No, I can't think of his last name.
Luther?
Lex, who's a ex-MIT professor, and then
Lex
a few
Friedman.
other. Yes, Lex Friedman. He was on Lex.
Gotcha.
What were they saying about it, Jenna?
He was just talking about his experience, how as the technology got better, suddenly they were seeing these things. He had experiences that their technology could not explain, that they knew for a fact couldn't be human. And when he would get back to this Navy vessel that he had flown off of, they're like, yeah, it's a thing. Just don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But he was much more detailed on the Lex Friedman podcast about the technology because Lex actually understands that. And I unfortunately don't, so I can only paraphrase what I could pick up.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that Congress has this hearing to be open and let the public know what's going on with UFOs. And then they have this this David Grush on there that he has no firsthand knowledge of anything. Everything he knows, he's heard from other people. And they ask him about details about stuff, and he says, I can only tell you in a secure compartmentalized information facility, a SCIF. I can't discuss it in public. So what the fuck is the purpose of a public hearing if they're
That's
not?
how that typically goes with any classified information. They just make it seem like they're doing their job and bringing stuff to the public. But at any point, we always see this. They say, well, we can't talk about it in this hearing. We gotta talk about it in the real hearing where we actually talk about what's going on. But we don't talk to the public.
Right.
This hearing is for me to sit here and say, I can't talk about it in this open forum.
Yeah. And go ahead, Jenna.
I was going to say, I feel like because of the recent allowance for those who had NDAs to come forward with the whistleblower protection on this specific subject, it might just be trying to come out and be an example so other people who do have the firsthand knowledge will start talking, who can say this stuff, who actually experienced it. Or it's a false flag to distract us from the shit going on.
And if you take the testimony at face value, I mean, I don't think this was a Joe McCarthy thing where he has this saying, I have a list here of so many known card-carrying communists. I think he has this document in front of him saying, here's the name and the contact information of the person who can tell you that. And he's sitting there speaking with Representative Cortez, saying, here you go. I'm providing this to you. I can't say it in public.
And why? Why couldn't he? Because he's got no firsthand knowledge. So he wasn't working on any of this stuff. So why would he have ever signed an NDA or some sort of top secret classified document if he's not actually involved? He's only hearing stuff from people that are involved.
Because if he calls out names, the people who do have NDAs may be forced to come forward. Because if he says
have to call out names, right? He could, when they said, do we have alien bodies? Well, we have alien material. And he couldn't go into any more detail on it without being in a SCIF. Well, why?
If I recall correctly, the phrase he used was non-human biologics.
Right, which could be an amoeba, an insect, a lizard, a dog.
Well, and isn't this the same guy that said something to the effect of, like, he's known people that have been physically hurt from like whatever was found, or there's been injuries reported and stuff. But then he couldn't go into any details.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I'm mostly annoyed is if you don't have firsthand experience, you should not be brought up
Right.
to talk.
Well,
You don't really offer any value.
Right.
Unless it's an example to get people to come out, or because he's got a list of names that he can't say in public that he can pass on to someone else, they may start dragging information out of people.
Right.
Well, and you know, here's the thing that kind of bothered me about the whole deal is as I'm watching this whole thing go down, it seems to me like a number of the congressmen are using it as a vehicle with which to push the fact that there's a secret government within the government that's doing stuff that the general public doesn't know about, and that the regular government doesn't even have the ability to figure out. I mean, what's his name? Matt Getz talked about going down to Atlanta to investigate something, and they wouldn't even tell him what was going on. They were keeping the information from him until he, had to pull rank and say, well, you understand Congress, controls all this stuff. I need to know this kind of thing. It just seems to me like it's this whole thing of a certain group within the government that wants to cast doubt on the functioning of the rest of the government, wants to make us think that there's this big nefarious group that's controlling things, and I just don't buy it.
Well, they may not be. So I would say they would. I don't get the implication is that they're controlling things as much as they are taking tax dollars and doing things that if we knew about, we would not approve of it. And if you look at what the CIA was doing with their LSD experiments, the way they tried to infiltrate both hippie movements and discredit them, and the Black Panthers. I mean, the fact that we got into the Vietnam War because we hate communism and we didn't want to give it up. We didn't want to see another communist country. Not to go too far.
Yeah, not to go too far down the political road, but you kind of hit the nail on the head there. The reality is, a lot of these people in Congress are part of the problem, though, because they're writing these blank checks that go to these black holes where the money's getting spent, and then they come back and they ask people, why can't you tell me, what it is that you're working on? Is that you gave them that money?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and why have a public hearing if you're not going to give us any real information?
Well, that's every hearing.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. Is like, what did we see anything new here that we have
it's just posturing.
On a late night PBS or not?
It's just posturing.
Yeah,
right.
But for me, like, what it ultimately comes down to is still likelihood. Like, the likelihood that aliens have visited here is astonishingly low.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a certain read between the lines situation going on here. I think Bill is right about the casting doubt, so and so, but to another degree, it's also really making people more comfortable with the entire idea of whistleblowing, because there have always been things going on in government that the general public doesn't know, that the members of Congress are kept in the dark about it. Harry Truman had to be briefed on the Manhattan Project when he became president. That was so secret that he didn't know about it.
Yeah.
There's always been something going on at that level. I think that's sort of the read between the lines that they're really bringing out. It's always been my personal headcanon, looking at the biological experiments of the 50s and 60s that have now been declassified, where they would dropped a light bulb with an inert virus in the New York City subway system, and they sprayed Minneapolis. They did an experiment in Minneapolis. They sprayed San Francisco Bay with an inert bacteria to see what would happen. It has always been my personal headcanon that whatever happened at Roswell. I mean, here's my thing with Roswell is that it gets explained too thoroughly. They're accounting for things that they could just say, well, that's just crazy. And they don't do that. They bring in experiments with parachutes and this and that and the other. And I've always thought that whatever happened down there I can't say with any certainty or even probability, but I have this nagging suspicion that they were doing something that was so bad that 75 years later, you still can't talk about it.
Stu, could you say with certainty if we were to interview you in a skiff?
Oh, like so, or
I'm joking.
when you talk of, well, I was trying to look up something that you brought up, Stu, because who knows what the hell Area 51 was. I mean, I remember that there was a recent book, and I can't find the new book called Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base, where one of the people who were involved with it basically came out and said that it wasn't aliens, but basically deformed children that Stalin sent as
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, like that
No,
it was sent
I've met someone who's been at Area 51, and he said what he saw was it's for experimental aircraft. And he said,
but he was trying to fuck with the American public. Stalin was trying to fuck with the American public, and sent basically an aircraft that he totally had intention to crash in Roswell, like it did.
Never heard
so
that.
I mean,
Never heard
that's
I forget. It's possible this is just propaganda against to bother the Russians.
Well, no, this didn't come out till recently. This was in a 2022 book that just came out.
The theory that the Russians were making up seeing aliens to mess with us, and we were making up Roswell to mess with the Russians that's been out there a while.
Well, I know it has been declassified out of the KGB archives. Is that a lot of the Kennedy assassination conspiracy theories were planted by the KGB. Really, they were for exactly what Bill was talking about. They were there to reduce the American people's confidence in their government.
Is that what we think aliens are?
What's that, Chris?
Is that what we think aliens are then?
What?
Plants.
A story planted to cause distractions geopolitically.
I mean, well, like I guess what the book says is that Stalin was inspired by what happened with the War of the Worlds and wanted to just create hysteria to undermine our society. And the book is called Area. God, where I just said it. Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base. So it was written by Andy Jacobson, who is a respected investigative reporter. And basically, it's a pretty disturbing thing that the person who said like they didn't want to come forward until they were close to death, obviously, like they said. So it's an interesting theory because, again, false flags. Is it really what it is? We don't know.
Yeah.
Now, what I will be interviewed about on a skiff, Bill. I'm not sure. I know what that idiom really means, but okay.
Oh, it's a secure, compartmentalized information facility. It's used by the government when they want to talk about classified information. It's, like a safe room that no intel can get out of.
No cell phones, no smart devices, no smart watches.
Gotcha. And now I know that the real concern of Blue Book back in the day, and it sounds just so dreadfully boring, but that was this was what Blue Book was really looking at is what's happening because people were seeing UFOs all over the place in the 50s. What they were really afraid of was that these were in fact Soviet propaganda of some sort to get the government used to dismissing reports of things flying in the air. So then when planes or missiles did come over and people would call and say, hey, there's something in the air, The authorities would just say, okay, yeah, we have
ignore it.
more UFOs. Yes, Mr. Johnson, we'll be right over. And that element of surprise there.
No, it makes sense.
It does.
That was the Blue Book hypothesis. That's what they were really investigating was, is this so pervasive that's a real danger? And that's, so if you ever watched that Project UFO back in the 70s, which I realize all of you are too young to have done, but there was the disclaimer at the end of the show saying that Project Blue Book concluded there was no imminent danger to national security, and that was the conclusion. Really, it was that the UFO phenomenon had not gotten so pervasive that authorities were ignoring reports of things in the sky. I can make anything boring. I can bore the crap out of anybody.
So and it still kind of comes back to as well. I mean, I know we talked about in one of the podcasts that the UN has basically an alien ambassador position. Why would they have that if there wasn't something that we should be concerned about? Are they trying to desensitize us because we're pretty much distracted by other things? We're like, alien, sure, beam me up because I'm tired of this shithole in the politics. There are people who are saying that I
don't want to live on this planet anymore.
Seth is all ready to be probed. He's had his drink.
Seth is always ready to be probed. What are you talking about?
Is that why you wear the kilt?
That's why he wears a kilt.
We'll have a special episode going forward called Probing Seth.
Took a really weird turn.
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of
necessary.
on me and probing.
We need a
Right?
dedicated
So-
podcast called Probing Seth.
I'll be better now.
So we talk about false flags, but then is there really something to be concerned about? Because a new alien documentary called Moment of Contact explores a UFO landing in Brazil where bodies were actually seen and taken. Someone died from a bacteria infection that they could not fix from handling the body. Like the whole town saw it, and then saw some of there were multiple witnesses to the beings because there were several hospitals that whoever picked up the bodies tried to take them to, and the hospital would not. They were like, no, we're not touching this. So they've got medical experts who saw this, and then for whatever reason, they called the U.S. A U.S. plane came in that was not officially sanctioned or allowed or should have been allowed by the Brazilian government, and then took the wreckage, the bodies, everything, and left. So this was in 1996. So what do you do with that?
I would like to think maybe in the book World War Z.
What? Go on. Go.
No. The Israelis had developed what was it? I don't know if you call it a scheme where if everybody on whatever panel it was, was stupid, and it was unanimous. Well, then they would create whatever you call it, some sort of government body to investigate that and make a plan for it.
For specific, if everyone was absolutely certain that it was going to be this, then there had to be one person whose job it was to go, but what if it's this?
And make a plan for it.
Yeah.
Well, for how long did the U.S. have active plans to invade Canada? For a very long time.
Why? They're so nice. They will do what we ever ask them to do.
Well, this was when they were still Dominion, when they thought it might, the geopolitics might
long time ago
that we might have to go to war against England, and so Canada.
Well, and it's those Canadian bankers. You just can't trust them.
Those Canadian drug dealers.
I just remember Mexico being more of an issue in World War II. They were much more concerned about Mexico flipping on the German side, and because there was a large German population in Mexico that would help facilitate that collaboration with Hitler.
Well, they were certainly that concerned about Germany, about Mexico in World War I. That was how we got into World War I. Was the Zimmerman telegram. This idea.
Okay, so that must be what I'm thinking of World War One, not instead of World War Two.
Yeah. The Zimmerman telegram, where Germany did reach out to Mexico about, if you join our side, the Mexican War was only, 70 years in the rearview mirror. We can maybe help you regain some of the land you lost, and that's, oh boy, Woodrow Wilson didn't take real kindly to that one. Going back into history too, this is something, and I don't know, maybe I'm trying to be too profound here, but again, going back to the UFO phenomenon that starts in roughly 1947. I know there are precursors to it, but I think we can agree the modern UFO phenomenon starts in 1947
with the bomb, the drop of the bomb. That's what seems to be the catalyst for these sightings.
Yeah, I think it's more than that, because in 47, you have Ken Arnold, coins the term flying saucer. Sees this thing in the air. This very reputable pilot. As reputable as the people who testified this last month in front of Congress. This is a good observer. He sees this thing. I don't know what it was. It looks like a saucer skipping across the lake. And then just a few weeks after that is when it was the same week, I think, was when the Roswell incident happened. And you have people who are willing to believe it. And I think the reason was, you mentioned the atomic bomb. That's absolutely true. You have this weapon of an entirely different type of energy that no one had ever heard of before. That was absolutely world expanding. During the war, you had seen, that you had this huge chunk of the American population that was of German descent, and they had found out that their people had committed a mass genocide in Europe. No one could believe it. You had
that was still not even sure about. No, even when they found the concentration camps, there were people who didn't believe that.
But by 1947, I think it had sunk in pretty well, and that was why Eisenhower said, bring in all the documentarians you can, because otherwise people are going to try and tell us that it's propaganda. We don't talk about this today, but there have been huge advances in IT even in the 40s. We don't even think of these as proper computers now. But if you read Catch 22, there's an episode in there about a guy who's given a promotion by a computer by accident, because the computer thought it would be funny. And I was
just going to say, to collaborate with what you're saying with the huge German population, before we even got into the war, there was a call to German Americans by Hitler to come help the fatherland.
Oh yeah.
So there were people who went over there, that were Americans to help.
Yeah, and that's just one point. I mean, radar had come in that no one had even conceived of before. Just these huge revolutions in technology and in culture. And I think when you've had all this happen, your entire world has been utterly flipped upside down. And so 1947, when you see a reputable pilot and reputable Air Force observers saying, we got aliens, people are like, okay, why not? Because you'd seen so much happen in the previous 3 years. That the world had so completely changed that aliens, okay, it's Tuesday. What the hell? And I'm wondering, Bill, because you kind of talked about this, because with the rise of QAnon, the rise of disinformation, for God's sake, the rise of flat earthers, that those people had put to bed in the 60s.
Right.
Are we at a point in our culture now where we have a similar dynamic, where people are very willing to say aliens? Yeah, sure. What the hell?
I need somebody to remind us the Earth is round.
Right.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I'm almost concerned that we're going down a road. I'm going to say, so there was an interesting a report that I watched this week. They were talking about, it was Deutsche Welle News out of Germany, and they were talking about basically, they were talking about the Prigozhin attempted coup, right?
Yep.
That he finally stopped, right? And they were talking about the fact that the Russians didn't really react to it. They, kind of embraced the Wagner mercenaries when they came through, and it wasn't like everybody was concerned. Oh my God, there's a coup attempt going on. It's a big deal. And they were talking to this woman who's kind of she's an expert on Russia and Russia politics and stuff, and they were asking her about that, and she said, well, it's basically Kremlin policies that are coming home to bite them now. They said the Kremlin for a long time has used their propaganda to put out purposely conflicting stories of events, so that the population doesn't really know what to believe, because they hear one thing and then they hear something else. And he said eventually when that happens, people just kind of go, fuck it, I don't care. I can't know the truth. I got better things to do. I'm not even going to worry about it.
And that's more or less what happened during that 24 to 48 hours.
Right. Yeah. And she said that's what's come home to haunt them now, that when something like a coup even happens, that people are like, man, I don't care. I got other things to worry about.
You got one notice on your phone that says everything.
There's too much conflicting information, and the ones that embraced Prigozhin when he came in were like, you know what? I'm so sick of all the bullshit that I can't believe. Here's somebody that at least speaks their mind, and maybe it's the same old shit we've got already, but it's someone different, and maybe there's a hope that things will change, and maybe I can care about something again. And so, I think with this whole UFO thing, maybe it's a similar thing in that, they're going to say it's out there, or other people are going to say it isn't out there, and eventually people are just going to go, meh, I don't give a shit. I got other things to worry about.
Let me ask this.
It explains COVID.
Yeah, right.
Right? Let me ask this then. Do we know what really prompted the hearing for Congress to happen in the first place?
Was it Trump that tried to declassify or put laws into that the government had to declassify what they knew about UFOs or information that
was that really what triggered it in terms of?
I don't know. I think that was what triggered the initial release of information. If I remember correctly, I should have looked that up before the show, but I didn't.
No, it's fine. I'm coming back to full circle here from where we started about this hearing, and what I seem to hear is trying to get an understanding of how did we get here and what do we believe, right? Mm-hmm. And we get conflicting information, and you get some in government that say it's all just bullshit, and you get some in government that are like, did you hear what that guy just said on their testimony? Which really amounted to not a whole lot of anything, right? It amounted to I can't speak about it, and we'll never know what they said behind closed doors because nobody can talk about it. So what was the whole freaking point, right?
Right.
I guess. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I think there were people who were ex-military who started to come forward, and they happened to have connections to the right people in Congress who said, if there are these stories, we need to give them protection. So then they create the whistleblower protection, and now people are coming out. I think that's kind of the chain of events. That you could have one person who knows the right person, one individual who knows the right person in Congress who's willing to take it up.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Exactly. A small group of House lawmakers called Wednesday for greater transparency in the government reporting on encounters with identified phenomena. That's what they were looking for.
It's not going to happen. We can't even get transparency over basic things, where money goes. But that aside, here's what I struggle with. I'm still a firm believer that whoever knows the actual truth would never make it in front of a camera or a mic to say it.
Right.
They would never get there.
Right. I agree.
The honest to goodness truth is that if you have total transparency, no one will believe you anyway.
Yeah. And in the current state of things today, there's no way that likely you would be believed. So there's that, but then there's also, if anyone got a whiff that you were going to bring out classified information, those whistleblower, protections do not protect you from you disappearing. I still firmly believe if you know anything about anything that actually has substantial value to what the government wants to protect that people don't know about, that will never see the light of day.
Well, Chris, what if they were to pull like a Edward Snowden type of revelation?
And Edward Snowden is still on the run.
Well, yeah, but
yeah, you're right.
But he did release a lot of information to the media, and I
think that's fair. But I think, they've shored things up, maybe potentially. Snowden proved that they were really ignorant in the protections and securities that they had. But I do think they've probably shored things up enough to where they would never make that mistake again. But that's a fair point. Is this prompting the next Edward Snowden to step forward and provide that information? But I also don't believe that if that were to happen, that person would ever would live. I think that would be like a global thing. That person would be hunted down.
So then you can't blame people for going meh, because
everything though assumes a lot of facts that need to be demonstrated. Like, one, why would aliens come here?
Yeah.
Two, if they did come here,
you're saying that we don't have entertainment value?
I mean, the fact that water is
value to the entertainment value to threat of being cut by an atom bomb ratio is really skewed over here.
But it sounds like from what their technology is, they can outrun an atom bomb. So
that's all. That's assuming they wanted to come here. Why would anyone keep it secret?
Why do people study ants?
Well, somebody interfered with the elections.
No, why would the government keep it secret?
It was
because
people can't handle the truth.
I think some people would be totally ready to take. I think there would be totally people who would say this world is fucked. How do I help the aliens fuck this planet war? That's where we're at. That's how much conflict.
Why would aliens want to fuck with the planet?
Why do humans study primates? I don't know.
Even stuff. It doesn't necessarily have to make
primate, but you've got to figure. You've got to cross stellar distances.
But you're also measuring that against what our capabilities are versus what other potential travelers are capable of. Again, you can't. I agree that it's less likely, but we don't know what we don't know, so we can't measure capabilities based off of what we can or cannot do on our planet and what our species has been.
This is true. Yeah, if you're talking about if you're entertaining the hypothesis of actual, honest to God, alien intervention, you have to keep in mind that we've only been mucking with the electromagnetic spectrum with any competency whatsoever for the last 200 years.
We're infants technically in that technology.
Yeah. One thing I will say, one real positive that's come out of these so far in the social media sphere is I'm seeing all these these hardcore right wing people who are get all their news from Fox and from what's the ONW or whatever that thing is called, saying wow, that AOC she really is bright and really perceptive, isn't she? I'm dead serious. I started seeing that wow, she doesn't make any sense at all. Boy, she's making all kinds of sense today, and I'm sitting there you're just now figuring this out. Oh my god!
And this is to say whether or not it's aliens or humans from the future. That's one of these theories: is that we're being observed by humans from the future who are trying to decide
or maybe some species that has has the ability to travel between universes, because we live in a multiverse, right? So maybe they figured out a way to jump. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there as to what these unidentified aerial phenomenon could be. They don't necessarily have to be aliens within our universe. They could be from another universe. They could be time travelers. We don't know, and that's the thing. That's why they're unidentified.
And it's not like we haven't explored those theories, and to bring us back to even Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Even in Star Trek, when they go back and they have to do a time travel, they've brought up in certain series like, hey, there's a government organization that's trying to keep the fact that like Romulans or something like that are running around on Earth or whatever, and I think all of those theories hold a little bit of water, and it's like, well, why couldn't that happen? Why isn't this just
hard to disprove?
Trying to keep things under wraps, or it could be other countries sending mysterious spacecraft to get us to be a little bit numb to potential future attack on the air, and nobody's going to believe it that there's these planes flying overhead and people are parachuting out because it's like your 40th call that year. It could be anything, but I don't think for certain that we can say, back to you, Seth, like, why would an alien come here? It's like, I don't know. Like we're over here trying to think, you've got, oh man, I hate to say his name, Musk, trying to build a ship to go to Mars. We ourselves are trying to stretch out and travel space, and I'm sure there could be beings in other planets. Like, why are they even coming here? And it's like, well, because why not? It's out there. There's a whole broad space to explore. We could do that. Trying to make sense of reasoning based off of our own culture, our own society, us as a human race, makes sense to justify why anyone would come here.
Or to flip it the other direction, because now I'm going with precedent now. In the 1890s, 1896, 1897, there were the rash of reports of this mysterious airship going across the U.S. And you have UFO enthusiasts saying, "Aha, there it was." The thing is, these reports go into such detail because they would talk with the pilots of the airship, and this went down to the very lowest level. You had most of the major newspapers in Nebraska were reporting on this. I mean, it was like every newspaper in the country had some kind of a story, and today you come to the almost inescapable conclusion that it was this cabal of railroad telegraph operators that were just trolling the living hell out of these United States. When you line up who's being interviewed, you realize that's who they're talking to every single time. And because nobody in New York is reading, the newspaper from Kearney. Nobody in Chicago is reading the newspaper from Poughkeepsie, and they don't realize, my God, that's what they're doing. In retrospect, we can tell what was going on. I realize you have to be open to the possibility of something that's beyond your understanding. But we have never been more vulnerable to a massive, massive troll,
right,
as we are right now.
I remember reading a short thing by Umberto Eco about some guy in the Renaissance that was, or probably prior, who had to go back and forth between like France and Italy every year, and would write himself letters ahead of time about some conspiracy, and then answer them. And after he died, they found all these letters. And so I forgot what conspiracy it was, but it was, all of a sudden, you've got Knights of the Templar doing stuff, right? You got Indiana Jones stuff. And it's all just one person who was for when he got bored would write himself stories.
Well, I think
it can happen.
I think I know why the aliens would come here, Seth. To serve
our fantastic podcast.
To serve man.
Okay, everyone. I think Bill is now. I now think that aliens have definitely visited, and Bill is in league with them.
Hey guys, here's what we can hope for because we're still having a hard time explaining the jump in our evolution. If they are our space daddy, maybe they're just trying to make sure their petri dish doesn't blow up.
I like it, space daddy.
I'm serious. But there are some people who believe that aliens are the ones who sped up evolution of human beings to get where we are now.
I am more inclined to believe that
biologists would support that, Jenna.
Yeah.
There are biologists who can't explain why there's a jump. That's why there's theories like the stoned ape theory, that because humans were consuming mushrooms as the trees receded in Africa and we were left with plains, and early humans were following cows and flipping over mushrooms.
The whole thing.
Okay, so we're at I think we've gone far afield.
We have. We should probably bring it home.
So can we all agree then, to wrap this up, that, for lack of a better phrase, that the truth is out there? So
trust no one.
Why, for lack of a better phrase? That's just the phrase.
That is the phrase.
The truth is out there. Trust no one.
What was an alien?
And Seth likes to be probed.
We didn't agree to that.
Yeah, this is where we cut it off.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this discussion, and I know we sure did. So thank you for tuning in. We will definitely have another After Dark session with some more excitement in the near future, and who knows, we may somehow bring it back around to this topic again. So anyway, thanks all for tuning in, and thanks everybody for coming on and talking about this, and maybe sometime in our lifetime we'll get an answer to the question, are there aliens visiting Earth?
Or we'll have them on the show.
Yeah, till then, take care, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.